Hi middle schoolers, Robin Bates, making another video. I really like this particular topic that I'm going to talk to you about because I use it a lot for myself, and I use it a lot in my private practice with my clients. When they're confronted with situations where they don't know how to respond, or when they feel an urge to do something but they're not sure if it's right or wrong, then we do what's called a cost benefit analysis. And in DBT, it's called a pros and cons list. So when you find yourself having an impulse, like you really want to do something and you're not sure if it's the right thing to do, then if you just pause to do this simple exercise, you might later look back and be so grateful that you came to a reaction that you might not have if you hadn't slowed down, right? Or you might have regretted just acting on impulse rather than actually kind of analyzing the situation and coming up with a response rather than a reaction. You kind of feel the difference? So what I want you to do, so pause now if you do not have a piece of paper and a pen, and then come on back. So I want you to draw a big square like this. Just a big old square. And then we're going to divide the square into 4 quadrants. Like that. Like 4 square. And then on the top of the first column, we're going to put pros, and the top of the second column, we're going to put cons. Pros and cons. Okay? And then on the rows, on the top row, this is when you're acting on impulse, what you feel the urge or the impulse to do. So that would be this row, acting on impulse. And then the second row is resisting the impulse. Okay, so now you have your template, and it looks like this. And I've done this a ton of times, and it's really given me a lot of insight. But probably the most important thing is that I'm slowing down before I just react. Okay, so let's say somebody says something rude on some form of social media or chat. But let's say a chat room or like along the chats at a Zoom meeting, right? Somebody says something rude, and it seems like it's directed to you, and your feelings are hurt, and now you're getting mad, right? What do you have an impulse to do? Maybe your impulse is to like shout out something back on the chat. Maybe you know a rumor about that person and you put that on there. Or maybe you use a word you want, that you might regret later, right? But it's this impulse you have to respond or react immediately. So that's where it's good to use this. So you sit back and you take a deep breath, okay? And you keep the situation in your mind, and you start by thinking about the pros of acting on your impulse. Let's say your impulse is to be rude back and call them a name, okay? The pro would be what? I mean, it probably would feel good temporarily, right? It would feel good. It always feels good to kind of get right back at somebody, right? Instinctually, like in the short term. Another pro might be you feel like maybe feeling like you're righting a wrong, right? You're kind of applying a wrong to a wrong to try and make it right. And I think you know the response to that. 2 wrongs don't make it right, right? But it feels like you're righting a wrong, right? By getting revenge immediately. And then another reason might be, another pro, could be maybe you're going to gain some respect from certain friends. There might be some friends that are like, oh man, I can't believe he said that. I couldn't believe, you know, right? I can't believe he went there, right? So in your mind, you're imagining that they're going to be impressed. Okay? So let's say those are your pros. All right, let's look at cons. The cons of acting on the impulse. Well, for one thing, when I think about it, like, I guess I could be wrong. The comment might not even have been directed towards you. Or it might be misinterpreted altogether, right? And this happens all the time with middle schoolers and communicating back and forth in your chat rooms and all this stuff. Lots of things get misinterpreted, right? So if you act immediately, you could be wrong. You could lose one or more friends, right? It could turn into a thing, right? Nobody likes things. It's not fun. Also, maybe a con would be you could get in trouble, right? I mean, there's not a lot of tolerance for bad behavior through chat. So you could get in trouble. You could get a talking to. And that's not fun because now your parents are involved, right? So you might lose some trust from parents. Maybe not, but I'm just making this up as I go. These are potential cons. Okay? So now I have my pros and I have my cons. So now let's go down and look at what are the pros of resisting the impulse. So, okay, let's say I'm not going to respond. I'm going to sit back. I am not going to respond to this. What's the benefit of that? Gives you time to get more information, right? Maybe you could check it out. You can kind of figure out what that was about. Maybe check it out. Kind of think about the situation. See if you can look at it from different angles. See if you can get information. Maybe the person's having a bad day. Who knows? Maybe they used a word that you're interpreting a different way. Who knows? Okay. What's another pro of resisting this impulse? Well, probably it's possible that it could sort of fade away and now you don't have as much stress. Versus if you kept it alive and kept feeding the conflict, now you got a stressful afternoon, right? So maybe you're reducing some stress. What's another one? Maybe your self-esteem. I don't know, for me, like when I resist a reaction, sometimes I feel like, oh, I kind of took the high road here, I showed some restraint, right? So you get a little boost in your self-esteem. Okay, so there's 3 things. Now we're going to move on to the cons of resisting the impulse. Well, what's the cons? Maybe people will think that I'm weak if it really was directed towards me. All right? Or maybe I feel like he or she is getting away with it. I'm writing that down. And if you want to add things, you can, just to this particular scenario, right? Maybe other people will start to agree with the comment. Actually, you just say others will agree, right? Because that's the way our brain thinks. So now you have your chart and it's all filled out. And now you sit down, and I know you guys remember, or hopefully you remember me talking about wise mind. So your wise mind takes into account your feelings, but also uses logic, right? So a wise mind will say, that's a feeling. That's a feeling response. I don't necessarily need to respond to a feeling response, right? It will also identify, that's really not a fact. I'm using my logic right now, and this thing that I wrote here as a fact really isn't, because it could be this, this, or this, right? For example, let's look at the pros. It feels good. Well, that's emotional response, right? There's no wise mind in that. That's just pure emotions. You're righting a wrong. So, okay, logic comes in and says, well, not necessarily, because it might not be a wrong. You're not sure what it is, right? So you go through all of these with your wise mind, and you identify, you look for black and white statements that are all or nothing, right? And see if you can crack and get some gray in there. Well, is this true under all circumstances? Could this be true? Could it be another, could it be something else, right? The other thing you do is challenge the facts, which is kind of similar to looking for black and white statements. So you look for something that says all or nothing, or I'll lose all my friends, right? And then you challenge those facts. And then you look for emotional reactions. So write that down. Number 1, look for black and white, all or nothing statements. Number 2, challenge the facts. Challenge them. See if you can crack some cracks in them. Challenge the facts. Number 3, look for emotional reactions. So obviously, anything that starts with feels like, feels good, feels sad, feels better, it's possibly doesn't have any logic, right? It's just your emotions coming through, and sometimes they just need to come through so that we can look at them more logically. So here it is, the pros and cons chart, cost-benefit analysis. I hope this helps you guys. I'd love to hear from you if you do use it and how it did help, because I love stories like that. And I look forward to seeing all you guys soon. Bye.